You're watching CCN, Clarksville Community Network. Produced by Goodwin Productions. Powered by CDE Lightband.
Well, hello. I'm joined today on the stage of the beautiful George and Sharon Mabry Concert Hall here on the campus of Austin Peay State University by our outstanding flutist, Angela Collier Reynolds. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Greg.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah.
It's a treat to have you on stage. I've known Angela since my very first year teaching at Austin Peay State University, long before there was a Gateway Chamber Orchestra. You were a flute student here, I think.
Yes. I was. So that was a few years ago now.
And you graduated 2 years ago? No.
Exactly.
So you're originally from Clarksville?
I am. I have deep roots in Clarksville. My dad grew up here, has lived here ever since. And so I've been around a while.
And once you graduated from Austin Peay, you've continued on in flutes, and you continued on master's and even eventually a doctoral degree. So where did you head after Clarksville?
So many places. Immediately we went to Cincinnati, lived for a year. I'm referring to not just me, myself, and my husband is involved in this.
Patrick.
Yes,
Patrick Reynolds, who's
for future reference.
Also a terrific alumni of Austin Peay and a very talented trombonist.
Absolutely. So from Cincinnati, we went off to Iowa, and I did my master's at University of Northern Iowa. And then he decided to join the Navy. So we've been a little bit, all over the place. But eventually I ended up doing my doctorate at West Virginia University. And now I have moved to Indiana State University, where I teach flute and other various things.
Well, fantastic. Yeah. And you've been playing with the chamber orchestra since, I'm going to guess
2011.
2011, yeah. And this has been really one of the very special things. I wear these two different hats as a conductor and as a teacher, and there's a lot of overlap. But one of the things that's been particularly special is when we've been able to welcome, former students and alumni of the program into the chamber orchestra. I think the last time I did the math, we've been able to feature, I think, 9 with quite a bit of regularity over the years. So that's been something that's been very special. What's it been like as a former student to come back and now sit among your professors and some of your former colleagues?
Well, I will say the very first time was extremely intimidating. I've since, gotten a little more comfortable, but it's actually just so much fun. Everybody that comes from Nashville and the professors that are here and everyone, I'll call them the real professionals. I realize I'm older now, but they're very welcoming and very nurturing in the whole environment, and you are as well. So I really enjoy the whole process.
Well, it's really been one of the very special things about the group, is this mix of, faculty from universities here and elsewhere, session players, as well as members of the Nashville Symphony and people that come in. A typical GCO weekend, you have to drive in. How long is your drive coming down?
Well, right now I think it's only about 4 hours, but it has been up to about 12.
And this has been sort of one of the special things, is that people have said, this is a group I want to be involved with.
Absolutely.
And,
I always had this fascination with Irish music because my grandmother took a trip. I had to have been maybe 10 or so. And when she came back and told me the stories about everything she did and the beautiful landscape, showed me pictures, I just fell in love. And I thought, it's a culture I really wanted to explore.
Sure.
And then, of course, all of these DNA tests came up, and we were able to check and make sure it was actually in my blood, and it is.
Oh, it is.
Both sides. So it's real.
Yeah.
But I I feel like the folk tradition, the oral tradition of learning music is also something I've been brought up with. You know, it's been in my life since I was just tiny. I've been singing.
Oh, really?
I will not sing today, sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, singing since I was just a baby, and yeah, so it's.
Because I remember you and Patrick have obviously done a great deal of travel over the last
Yes.
several years, particularly since he's been in the Navy. And you know, we joked about you coming in from Italy, but that really kind of has happened.
It has happened.
But I remember that there was a trip not too many years ago to Ireland.
Yes.
And I had the distinct impression this was sort of a going home component, even if you hadn't been before.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it was kind of on my wish list, obviously, for all the reasons I've mentioned.
Sure.
But, you know, it was one of those things I said, hey, Patrick, here's my list. And he said, great, because he's got a little, he believes Scottish in his blood. And so we're right on the line and can really explore,
Sure.
you know, that area. And so we went and we spent, oh gosh, Christmas and New Year's in this tiny little town called Adair. It was absolutely amazing. It was freezing cold, but that was okay because we got to see everything, see session musicians who do really what I was trying to do today. And
You did it remarkably well.
well, thank you. But, you know, learning that traditional style of playing on the silver flute is really challenging. It's not made to do quite
Sure.
the same thing. So
Well, and you know, we live in a wonderful time where we
Yeah.
have the ability to sort of travel vicariously through others by watching things on YouTube or doing web searches, that sort of
Yes,
thing. But
thankfully.
how different was it to actually go to Ireland?
oh, so very different. I mean, well, for one, it was like going home to a big family. You know, everyone was so welcoming. I distinctly remember sitting in a pub on New Year's Eve. It was the last night we were going to be there, which we would have rethought later on, but you know, because you want to stay up there. But you know, we were in the pub, and everybody just kind of kept, you know, poking at us. And hey, you know, I sat right next to where everybody had to order their drinks or their food or anything. And so I got to talk to a lot of the locals. But it was funny because they all thought we were local.
Wonderful.
Until I opened my mouth.
Yeah.
But
Well, but it's amazing how travel can really change you.
Yeah.
You know, and as a musician or anybody in the arts or just, you know, an interested citizen of the world, the ability to experience another culture. So what I would love to know is, any of the pieces that you just performed to go along with this book, were any of those ones that you experienced or encountered while you were in Ireland?
maybe versions of
Sure.
most of them, the
Yeah.
jigs, the reels,
Yeah.
everything. But, you know, I had to have heard The Last Rose of Summer somewhere.
I'm sure.
I had to have. If nothing else, it was playing in a shop somewhere that we went into. But, of course, one of my favorites. It's like Danny Boy. You know, you just hear it.
Sure. Well, and is that something is that a performance that you would be comfortable with us sharing with the audience?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Because
Yeah.
I sat right over here in the corner as you were recording that one, and I knew, you know, you were a student of my wife,
Yeah.
Lisa, and she's been featured in one of these talks as well. And I took out the phone and I shot a little video of you playing that. It was so beautiful. And I sent it to you, but then I also sent it to her and said, "You've got to be so proud."
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. So Angela, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your music with us, and thank you for sharing some stories from Ireland.
Sure. Happy to do it.
Well, hello. Today I'm joined on the stage of the beautiful George and Sharon Mabry Concert Hall here on the beautiful campus of Austin Peay State University with a superstar cellist, one of our principal cellos with the Gateway Chamber Orchestra, and also a well-established soloist, and that is Michael Samis. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Greg. It's great to be here.
You've been in the Middle Tennessee community for quite a period of time now. What brought you to Middle Tennessee to begin with, and what are you up to?
Well, I came to live in Nashville in 1999 when I got a job in the Nashville Symphony in the cello section. And so I had graduated from Cleveland Institute of Music in Ohio and basically graduated and moved here.
Moved here and straight into the cello section. And we were so fortunate to have you join GCO. Really in the very early days. It was still when it was the Gateway Chamber Ensemble. I have very fond memories of a Nonette concert where 9 of us walking out on stage after like an hour and a half of rehearsal thinking, what in the world are we going to do? But since that time, you've gone on to become a soloist, and you've also developed a second career. Could you tell us a little bit about those things?
Sure. Yeah, I left the Nashville Symphony in around 2012 for those two reasons you just mentioned. And actually, the recording that we did with the Gateway Chamber Orchestra was my debut solo recording, and it featured a Romantic era cello concerto by Carl Reinecke. That's basically was lost.
Correct.
And we
we found it.
we found it. And that really is one of my fondest musical memories, was putting that together with this amazing ensemble.
Well, it was an invigorating day. There was that. There was the Schumann work that had been arranged for us to be able to play, and just the opportunity to be on stage with a musician of your caliber is just so exciting and so rewarding. I'm pretty sure that's not the first time you'd ever played a concerto, though. Do you remember? Can you think back to when your first time might have been?
The first time probably was with the Cincinnati Symphony. I grew up in Cincinnati, and in high school there was a concerto competition where the winner would get to do a concerto with the Cincinnati Symphony / combined with the Youth Symphony.
Wow.
And it was Dvorak.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. Now, you come from a very musical family. Your mother, Sylvia, was in the Cincinnati Symphony for a number of years, associate concertmaster?
Right.
Yeah. Did she happen to get to play in the group when you played the concerto that time?
She did happen to play.
Did she really?
Yeah, actually, that was part of the fun. And she came down for both, I think, the performance and the recording.
That's right. I can't get over sort of the coincidence with that.
Yeah.
So your very first concerto performance was with the Cincinnati Symphony.
Right.
And your mother played in the orchestra. And then years later, your first concerto performance with the Gateway Chamber Orchestra. I remember we had a last minute where somebody got sick and we needed another violinist, and your mother was gracious enough to come in and play. And then came back and played in the recording. So your first recorded concerto, your mother also played in the orchestra.
That's right.
That's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So the music that we've been listening to over the last little bit, you've been recording. You've played a classic by Johann Sebastian Bach, and I know that the Bach cello suites are something that are very near and dear to the heart of all cellists.
That's right.
What's so special about those pieces?
Well, they were kind of rediscovered by a cellist named Pablo Casals. And he started, before he started playing with them, as far as I understand, they were mostly they kind of fell, after Bach's time, they kind of fell aside and became more of like an exercise, or thought of like an exercise or something. And Casals really brought them back to life.
So let's give the audience some context. So Bach, his dates would have been, he was a Baroque composer, 1685 to 1750. Does that sound suitably professorial?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, great. But Casals was an important cellist from the past century.
Correct.
You're right, yeah. And so Casals rediscovering these, any idea like about when he was sort of reintroducing them to the world as serious works of music as opposed to...
Yeah, I would say early 20th century.
Early 20th century, yeah. Yeah, very exciting. And that's not the only work that you performed that had something to do with Casals.
That's right. The anchoring piece was a setting by Casals. He didn't exactly compose it, but he set it. It was a folk song by his people, the Catalan people, called Song of the Birds. that has a very interesting story. So it's a traditional song, but he often would play it as an encore, his own rendition of it.
Yeah.
But Casals lived a long time and eventually decided to stop playing the cello. And he was coaxed and coaxed and coaxed to come back to the stage. And it was during I can't recall right now exactly the events at the time, but it was during a very turbulent time. And his condition for coming back was to the stage was that he would play that piece. And the reason for that is that it was right around the time that that Franco threw the Catalan people out of Spain. And so as a commemoration to that is he performed that piece.
Wow,
Yeah.
what a special piece and a special story about a very special musician.
Yes.
And so you've played this for us as part of this, and that's in fact something that we're going to share with this audience. So could you tell us a little bit about what someone would expect to hear during this portion of the Song of the Birds that they're going to hear?
Yeah, it has a little thing at the end that has almost a trill sound that sort of sounds like birds chirping, and then the melody is really quite simple, beautiful, lyrical, very heartfelt, and yeah, I don't know how much else to say. But
I think that sounds beautiful. I think the audience will look forward to hearing it. Well, Michael Samis, thank you so much for playing for us today and for sharing your love of music and your masterful technique in musicianship. It's just a pleasure.
Thank you.
For current and exclusive content, subscribe to CDE Lightband, connecting you at the speed of light.